3, 2, 1.
John, are we live?
We're live, sir.
What's going on?
Not too much, my man. How are you? We missed each other last week.
Did you really miss me for a whole week?
For a whole week.
Yeah, it's when we were just chatting with our guests beforehand, I forgot we skipped a week because of the polar vortex last week.
Brrr.
When are our polar vortex guests coming back on?
I believe April 10th.
Okay, awesome. So we rebooked them.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, it worked out for everybody because I believe both, I know one for sure, but they both have kids who were going to be home. So it's like they really wanted to do the show, but they weren't going to be able to be here. And they're like, well, we could bring the kids. It's like, well,
that was a miserable 2 days of weather. That was crazy. And I'm a born and raised in Chicago guy, and that was insane.
Yeah. Yeah, we went to Costco on Sunday prior, knowing what we had coming at us, and bought a bunch of chicken and fish and made chili and some wine.
I still Uber Eats every single time, but the delivery fee was like $20 because nobody was really delivering. So I didn't realize I could just Uber Eats, but that I would have a $20 delivery fee.
So
which
I know
is what happened to me.
You're in real estate. Next house you get one with a kitchen. You can cook some food instead of sending these poor guys and girls out 20 below so you can get a hot dog.
The beautiful thing is I have 2 ovens and 3 grills, and none of them got used. Shout outs before we get into our guests, because we have 2 amazing guests today, and I have a feeling that we are going to run the whole hour plus some.
Indeed. So I will make it quick. I guess that's what you're kind of telling me to do.
Yeah, kind of. But no, go ahead. I think you always have good shout outs. He always 1-ups, 3-ups, 10-ups my shout outs. But I just thought of a good one. So I got you.
All right. Intriguing. All right. So personal note, good friend of mine from high school, his son just turned 21. His name is Riley Jones. Super great kid. Just got done with school. He, known him since he was born. But just to see him turn into the man that he is, he's a really nice guy. And couldn't be happier, that he's turned out how he has, and great parents and such. So shout out to Riley.
Is Uncle John taking him drinking this weekend?
No, we're going to catch up in April. And I'll tell you why quickly. So for a decade plus now, between Super Bowl and St. Patrick's Day, I don't drink.
Oh.
That's my hiatus.
I thought maybe that's because of this little fitness challenge we have going on.
No, I've been doing this for a long time. Yeah. So get me back on screen as you're drinking water.
Well, he said, Johnny said, John, turn on your mic. Thanks, Johnny.
Yeah, I don't know why, because I am, man. I am plugged in. I don't know what's going on. Because I can hear that.
I can hear you too. Johnny might have to turn his volume up.
Yeah. Well,
sorry, Johnny.
The other shout out, big polar vortex, going back to that. All the people from ComEd that were out there trying to do their best to keep people's electricity. And my dad, I was telling Mimi earlier, my dad was a journeyman plumber for the Chicago Park District. And any time in weather like that, pipes would freeze and burst. Those guys would have to go out and dig and do the shutoffs. And so anybody that was out there trying to make things run, big shout out to them.
Yeah. And my shout out is actually to you. You braved the polar vortex to go out and get a list of all of the different places people could go and donate. So my shout outs to John, because I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, whichever day. It was Wednesday. Yeah. You went out and you compiled a list of places that people who needed shelter could go to, and then went out and found places where people could donate. Mm-hmm. And kudos to you, because you took a lot of effort and a lot of time to go do that. And piggybacking on that, obviously, everybody who had to work, I have a couple buddies of mine who are cops and firefighters. And like you said, some people had to work, nurses, doctors.
Yeah.
I stayed at home. Yeah. I didn't move very much. Uber Eats myself, but to everybody else who had to actually work and brave the cold to take care of people.
That was something. That's all I got, man.
Johnny keeps saying he's at 10% compared to Mo. I'm just loud, Johnny. But if we do have audio issues, just let us know with the rest of our guests, because I don't think we need John all that much anymore, except for
No.
to hit the buttons back
done.
there. I'm going to get into our first guest, Mimi LeClair. She's the president and CEO of Boys and Girls Clubs of Chicago. She spent 30 years working in the nonprofit sector, which is incredible, and it's such a giver's gain mindset to spend 3 decades working in the nonprofit sector. I'm going to let Mimi explain what Boys and Girls Club is because I don't want to butcher it, and you guys do some incredible stuff. So thank you so much for coming on.
You're very welcome. I'm delighted to be here. Boys and Girls Clubs has a long legacy in the city of Chicago and actually across the United States of America. We've been in Chicago since 1902, and we currently have 23 clubs. And what they are safe places where young people between the ages of 5 and 18 can go every day after school and all day long during the summer. And we run a range of really incredible programs for these young folks, ranging from academics to sports and recreation to character and leadership development to healthy living and healthy lifestyles, and most importantly, fun. Because if they're not having fun, they're not going to come back. And we want to make sure that they come back day after day. And it's just been a joy to be a part of the organization. I've been here now for 2.5 years, having been in the nonprofit world for 30, though never thought I was going to end up in nonprofit. I actually started out in business and was invited to serve as a volunteer in one of the nonprofits in the city and fell in love with the mission, and there was no turning back. So here I am this many years later, delighted to be here.
And I've personally visited the Boys and Girls Clubs in Chicago through the Chicago Association of Realtors, and I want to touch on how happy these kids are and how incredible the staff was. So do they call them counselors?
They call them mentors.
Mentors,
Or staff. Yes,
correct.
they do.
They were incredible, and watching how much fun the kids were having and watching how involved the mentors
Yes.
were with the kids really was an incredible thing to see.
Nice of you to say. In fact, in many instances, those staff members, those mentors, really are the surrogate parents for a number of our young people. And they have a vested interest in seeing these young folks grow and develop. They become very attached to them in obviously very appropriate ways. They want to make sure that these kids succeed. Many of our staff members were once themselves club members and recognize when they become adults what the club has meant to them in their life as growing up as a young person, and want to return back to a club. It might not be the same club, it might be from a different state altogether, but really want to give back because they know what a difference it makes in a young person's life.
And many of them had mentioned that when we were there. They said, as a kid, we looked to Boys and Girls Club, and we're back here again because of the impact it had in their
Right.
lives, which was really incredible to watch. They graduated through, obviously, the system and
Sure.
became very successful and came back to be able to mentor the rest of the kids.
Mm-hmm. The clubs are really a joyful place.
Yeah.
There's great energy. There's often lots of chaos,
Yeah.
but it's managed chaos, and these kids feel like they're really getting something out of going day in and day out. So it's fun that's how I get my energy. When I visit a club, it's very apparent to me why I'm doing what I'm doing. It keeps me connected, and it's just great joy to see the kids.
I can believe it because we were there for a day, and I can speak for everybody who was on the board with us. We left there feeling excited. The kids had so much energy. They beat us at every sport we played. I mean, there's nothing we could beat the kids at. But they just were so impactful on us that we've gone back and, we told the association, we said, if we can continue to be involved with the club, please let us be involved with the club, because the kids had so much impact on us, and just being able to give at least a little bit of our time to impact them back was incredible.
That's very nice.
And that's something people can do, right? They can volunteer and be a part of.
Absolutely. We, Boys and Girls Clubs of Chicago, really exists on the generosity, both time, treasure, and talent of volunteers. So absolutely, anybody could go to our website, and we're at bgcc.org, and ask for our volunteer coordinator, and he'll make sure that you find a place.
Yeah, and I know a lot of folks that listen to us, they have different businesses who get involved with taking, their offices, and like our office has Main Street Cares, and John and I have helped with a lot of charities in the past. If you guys are listening and you want to do a great activity, reach out to Boys and Girls Club and set up a time to go out. We took them pizza, and they loved pizza.
They love pizza.
They love pizza, but just being able to spend a whole day hanging out with them and chatting with the kids was incredible. So if you guys have businesses or a group and you guys can spare some time to go out there, I highly recommend doing it. How many clubs are there in Chicago?
We have 23.
23.
We have 9 what we call legacy or standalone clubs. They're larger buildings. Some of them have indoor pools. Most all of them have gymnasiums, and then there's a variety of rooms for arts and recreation and whatever, we feed the young people every day. During the summer they get 2 meals. During the school year they get a meal, which really does oftentimes serve as their last meal of the day. And we've grown tremendously over the last couple of years, and we really want to continue to grow so we can serve more young people who really do need us and who really want to have a safe, productive place to spend their time.
You guys do incredible stuff. And how does a child who wants to be a part of Boys and Girls Club get enrolled in being a part of Boys and Girls Club?
Very easy. They could just show up at a club. They could go online or they can make a phone call. And it's very, we don't turn away any children. We really don't. We do expect certain behavior of our club members when they're in the club, and because we tell them that they're representing Boys and Girls Clubs. But we really look to help all young people, and the cost is nominal. It's $20 a year for the entire year. Yes, it's virtually free.
Yeah, it's virtually free.
And for some young people and families that cannot afford that, we waive that fee. We scholarship them in, and thankfully there are donors who make that possible for us. So it's we're very proud of the fact that we are virtually a free service.
And if somebody wanted to donate, they can do it. They can volunteer, but they can also go on and donate as well. Correct?
Absolutely, online. Yes.
Any events coming up?
We do. We have our annual Youth of the Year competition and dinner at Navy Pier on March 7th. And we anticipate about 1,000 guests, but there's room for more, so I encourage anybody to come. And what we love about this particular event is that it showcases the young people. We have 6 young people in high school. They have to be teens to compete, and they share with the audience what the club has meant to them and sort of the trajectory of their lives and how the club has made a difference in their lives. And it's incredible. It's rejuvenating, and it's actually educational. Many people in the room don't know the depth of programming that goes on in the Boys and Girls Clubs. I think sometimes we are misunderstood as being more of a swim and gym, kind of a just solely recreation, but we're far more than that. In fact, we are really more about character and leadership than anything, and we're very proud of that. So,
and I'm glad you touched on that as well, because when the first time I visited, I thought it was almost an after-school program where kids could go and just play in a gym.
Right.
And admittingly so, I was part of the group of people that thought that's what was happening. And then going through the classrooms and seeing what the mentors were doing to almost to actually mentor and help people grow, not just mentally but physically, and take care of these kids. It really opened my eyes. It's like a schooling system for them after they go to school.
Right, absolutely. And again, I cannot stress enough the fact that it's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun, and we have to walk a very fine line between being school-like or sort of walking outside the boundaries of that, because they're in school all day.
Right. And
when they come to us, they are often sort of at the end of their day, they're kind of tired. Not only that, but just from a psychological, emotional standpoint, these kids deal with a lot living in the communities where they come from. And we want to be there to help them forget some of that, and not only help them forget, but to help them work through it. And that's, again, where these mentors are extraordinary. They take the time to get to know these young people individually. They are aware when somebody hasn't come to the club in a few days, and they're following up with them and finding out where they've been to make sure that nothing is going wrong in their lives. So it is a place where we want to make sure that they feel very valued. That's important to us.
And it's instantly something you see when you visit the clubs. The kids are just having such a good time, and the camaraderie of the kids with one another and the mentors and the kids is immediately apparent. I mean, they were having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Part of us thought it's because they were beating us at everything, so they were just enjoying kicking our butts.
Yeah.
But the interaction between them and the mentors and everything they were doing was just such an uplifting feeling. And I expected it to be fun, but it was literally everybody who left that came to volunteer, our mood was taken 10 notches up.
Well,
by
you know,
visiting.
these young folks are far more mature than I was at their age, without a doubt. And believe it or not, they love when they have guests and volunteers in their club, because they instinctively realize that there are people out there who care about them.
Yeah.
You know, and I think they're boosted by that. They knew that you were there because you do care about their success and you want to make a difference, and they respond to that beautifully. Whereas maybe when I was their age, I would have taken, that very differently. But these kids are quite mature. And as I said before, there is an expected level of respect that our young people are expected to give to each other and to their staff and to their guests. So they really do shine.
Now that you mentioned that, I imagine when I was their age as well, if I was sitting at school and a group of people came to talk to us in the middle of class, we probably wouldn't pay much attention to them. We'd probably be looking the other way. But these kids were engaging with us back and forth, and it was a lot of fun.
It's because they appreciate you being there, and that is the truth. They really do.
The only advice I would give to people that go is wear gym shoes. Don't wear something that looks fancy, because they will make fun of you the whole time for your gym for your shoes, your shoe choice.
Yes.
That's what I got the whole time. They were just teasing me
Indeed.
about my shoes, and it was a blast with the kids.
Yeah, indeed.
Going back to when you got involved in nonprofits, you said you were in the business sector first.
Yes.
Had you intended on being in nonprofits, or did you fall in love with just...
That was the furthest thing from my mind.
Really?
As a young person, I hadn't really been exposed to nonprofits. I took advantage of Chicago park districts and activities like that. But when I was adult in my mid-20s, I was invited to serve on a board. I actually was a marketing and finance major and had gone in that path, in that direction, invited to sit on a board for another nonprofit, and then invited to come in and work there. I was reluctant to do so because up until that time, my impression of nonprofits was that many of them ran sort of by the seat of their pants, and there wasn't much strategy involved in their success. Well, I was wrong, obviously. It couldn't have been farther from the truth. When I started working at nonprofits, frankly, I found that the staff and the board work extraordinarily hard. They're very strategic. They learn to do more with less, because you have to be very careful with how you spend somebody else's money. They trust that you're going to spend it appropriately. So I think nonprofit management is just extraordinary. And as I said, once I started, there was no turning back. I was with another youth organization called Mercy Home for Boys and Girls, and I knew when I made the change that I had to stay with the youth organization, because I see the difference that these nonprofits make in their lives. And our kids will be the very first to say that we are life-saving as an organization. We literally do save them from some of the bad influences and violence in their communities, and we protect them. I mean, there's open gunfire going on in front of some of our clubs, and we make sure our kids are safe at all times while they're with us. We're life-changing. They will say that to us as well. We really do try to spark and see what inspires them, and make sure that we have activities and we have discussions with them about really what they love and what they want to do in life, and we try to make those opportunities available for them. And then, these clubs are sort of lifelong. They don't forget their experience, and they often come back. So it's just been nothing but a pleasure, an honor, really, to be a part of the organization.
Well, we appreciate everything you guys do, because, like you said, a lot of times for these kids, it's the only positive outlook they have in some neighborhoods.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate that so many of these neighborhoods are so hard hit with violence and drugs and gangs, and just being able to provide a positive outlet every single day
Right,
for them
right.
is an incredible thing. And it's sometimes the only positive.
You bet. And
outlook they have.
we know that with more clubs, we can influence more positively far more kids. That's why we are on a trajectory of growth. A few years ago, we were serving 16,000 young people in a year. Today, it's 26,000, and we hope to get up to 30,000 in the near term. So there's no doubt children and teens in particular want to be in an environment where they're safe and they're having fun. They don't actively choose a life that's going to be difficult.
Right.
So if we can make sure that we are in communities, and I like to reach out to community leaders and church leaders, if we're in communities, and if you see a space where we can be, we're very open to having a conversation about how we might be able to open a program in that community.
And I imagine the impact you guys have on the kids is exponential, not just in their lives, but when you have 30,000 positive kids that might be able to go and get, 30,000 of their friends and impact them in a positive manner. That growth of positivity
Right.
that you give to each kid is exponential
Right.
in every single
It's
neighborhood.
Absolutely. It's multiplicative. And we do very little marketing, which I think is extraordinary. It's mostly all word of mouth, kid to kid. And we've had a huge upsurgence, if that's a word, of teens lately, because we did have a concerted effort to get more teens into the club. We feel that they really are vulnerable. And we did some kinds of fun Friday night activities that really took hold. And thanks to social media, these kids just spread the word and they invite their friends. And 40% of our population are teens, and we think that's just great.
Yeah, it's wonderful because I'm sure a lot of the parents, too, that want their kids to have a positive outlook, who have to work after
Right.
school, then don't have any ability to know where their kids are going.
That's right.
And then that's typically the time that a negative influence of a gang member or something could pull a kid in the wrong way, where now there's that outlet where you have positivity.
You hit the nail on the head, absolutely. The after school hours are the most dangerous hours for adolescents and teenagers. They are typically victims of crime during those hours because they don't really know what to do with themselves. They don't want to stay at home and they're out on the streets, or they become perpetrators of crime. And of course, we want to stop both of those tides. So we are very cognizant of knowing that that's a vulnerable time. And then, of course, summer times is a different story altogether.
Of course, yeah.
We
Then
have
they're
them
not
all
at school
day.
at all.
Right, yeah, right.
And it's so all year long, anytime after school and on break. So during breaks, do they get the full time at the clubs as well, or?
They do. We typically are off during whenever Chicago Public Schools are off.
Okay.
We follow their schedule. And for the holiday break, for example, when schools are down for 2 weeks, we are open one of those 2 weeks.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
And you do have some suburban locations?
We do. We are out in Fort Heights, which is a south suburb, and we are also, our newest club is in Naperville.
Great.
And again, we want to go where the kids where they need us.
And Naperville's a big market because you have Aurora and Naperville. And
Exactly.
I think a lot of people forget that. I think Aurora and Naperville are the second largest populated area, but obviously behind Chicago.
They are in the state.
In the
yes,
state.
they are. In fact, I think Aurora is the second largest city after Chicago.
Yeah, I think that's the fact
Right.
because it's larger than Rockford, and
Yeah.
I had always imagined it was Rockford, and now I know it's Aurora.
Right. And there's tremendous need.
Tremendous need in
out there.
Aurora
Yeah.
as well.
It was somewhat surprising to me, to be honest with you, but we do our due diligence, and when we look at demographics, that's really kind of leads us to where we're going to go next. And I was surprised to find that out.
And anything coming up in Chicago where people can get involved outside of the event, or should we just have people reach out and see if they can get a group of people over to some clubs?
Well, we often need folks to help out at our events, and we do events at individual clubs as well as we host events for the Chicago region. So if you want to get involved in events, please do so. We are soon going to be starting an early literacy program, and we would love to have folks come and read to the young children.
Oh, that's great.
And listen to them read aloud. So there are plenty of opportunities, both now and coming up in the near future.
So for those of you listening, you can volunteer at the clubs with groups, you can donate to the club, attend some of these events, just get the word out. or this early literacy
Yes.
is a fantastic way for an individual to show up and get involved with a club.
Indeed, indeed. The only thing I would say, and people would completely understand it, is we have to run a background check,
Absolutely.
obviously, and other than that, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for everything you do,
You bet.
the clubs do. And again, I highly encourage anybody who has not visited one of the clubs to go. It's an incredible experience. You're going to impact the kids, and for sure they're going to impact you.
Yes.
Every time we left there, we were impacted, I think, just as much as we hopefully impacted them as well.
That's nice of you to say, and it's very true. Thank you.
I'm going to shift to our second guest, and then we will have a little bit of a roundtable discussion. Our second guest, Johanna, I'm not going to butcher your name. I called you Johanna when you walked in. Marie. She's a cooking personality. She's the owner of Momma Cuisine, which is a blast. You guys are going to check it out after the show's done, I promise you. You've been seen on NBC, WGN, ABC, Fox, at literally anywhere you can be seen, you've been seen. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And tell me what Momma Cuisine is, just because, like Boys and Girls Club, I don't ever want to butcher what it is, and you do so much. So I'm going to let you go ahead and tell us exactly what Momma Cuisine is.
Well, Momma Cuisine really is about great everyday meals. Simple ingredients, basic cooking techniques, just for the typical family. And I really love cooking, and I understand the importance of cooking, and I just wanted to share it in a really fun way.
I love it. And so on Momma Cuisine, I looked you guys up, and I suggest everybody check out our website. It's fantastic, and it's a lot of fun. You have a blog, and then obviously you have the recipes and videos, but you also have a show.
Yes. So it really started as a cooking show in 2009. I am the self-proclaimed very first online cooking show in Chicago, still running today.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you very much.
Take that, Rachel Ray.
And, you know, it's been really empowering for me. It's a lot of what you were speaking about with Mimi. When you're helping others, you don't realize how much you're giving back to yourself. And that's really what I've experienced over 10 years. So many women and dads, you know, and just people in general coming to me. At first, it's about the recipe, but you become involved. People start to share about their lives with you. And food is like the gateway. It's something that we connect with so much on different cultures. You learn about people's different cultures, the things that they've done growing up. You know, you hear stories of how their grandma made a certain recipe. It's just really changed so much of my life. It's been amazing.
And you cook a wide variety of stuff, because I was looking at some of your recipes, and one thing I love about your recipes too is it's not just a written recipe. You place a video with it, so people who are
Yes.
visual can actually watch the video
Yes.
of you shopping, you prepping,
Yes.
it being completed.
Yes.
And it's a wide range of stuff. So do you just love cooking everything?
I just love cooking everything. I'm Filipino and Indian, so I grew up naturally in a multicultural home, and that was normal. It was normal to me to eat all these weird things. It wasn't weird to me. It was so growing up. That's just how my mind always worked. I loved trying different foods, different cultures. I really love Mexican food, so I try to always include
too.
that. Love it. Asian food, of course. Filipino food, of course. And just so many things about the things that we see in the grocery stores that will help a busy mom, busy families create really good food. And I think these days we know how important it is to cook for ourselves. There was a generation where everyone started to work and everything was industrialized, and a lot of us are going back to basics now. Everything old is new again in our generation. But a lot of us didn't know or didn't learn how to cook because our moms and dads were working all the time. So now in my generation and more, we want to cook a lot more at home. We see the health importance. We know how important it is for families to get together, even if it was just once a day or a couple times a week, to actually sit down and eat together. And so a lot of my recipes are just very simple. 5 ingredients or less, very affordable. I have tons of chicken recipes because you can't have enough of chicken recipes, and just taking things that are there readily available and making it your own. And a lot of my recipes are the same way. If you don't like onions, then don't put them in. You're not going to hurt my feelings. Just do what works for you. As long as you're cooking, I think you're already healthier than the other person.
And that's such an important point, because we were laughing before the show started, and we talked a little bit at the beginning of the show about Uber Eats, and the cooking at home is always healthier than ordering out because you know what you're putting in your meals, and your recipes, like you said, they're very simple. So a mom who might say, I got kids now and I'm not the best chef in the world, she can create a delicious meal quickly and also very healthy.
Right. And I think when you start cooking for yourself, then the ingredients start to matter. I don't care if you're making mac and cheese, which we know is not the healthiest thing, but you made it yourself. So there's that pride. Number one.
I love mac and cheese, by the way. I actually love all food.
Oh, yeah. You should see my recipe for pumpkin, like fake mac and cheese, but it's pumpkin puree. And kids think it's mac and cheese because it's orange. But
interesting.
Yeah, it's so good.
So you fool the kids pretty easy into healthy meals.
But there's heavy cream, so I don't know how healthy it really is. But I always say, even if it's not like the healthy, let's say you're still using a lot of butter and heavy cream, but you made it and you know that the ingredients that you put in it are fresh.
Right.
It's still healthier than the frozen thing that you stick in the oven.
Agreed, 100%. And in the idea of being able to have a meal at home, I just remember growing up, my family always made me eat at home. And at the time, I probably was like, oh, I got to sit down for dinner. But looking back now as an adult, what an important thing that was. And I think when a mom or a dad is obviously preparing their meals, there's obviously that expectation that everyone's going to have dinner together, and you bring them together in a very nice way as well.
Yes.
Did you just love cooking from when you were younger, or is that something you grew into as you became an adult?
I just always remember cooking, even as young as like 6 years old. I remember my aunt, and this is one of my first memories cooking, is that my aunt was making fried rice in the morning. I'm Asian, so we eat rice with every single meal. And she was making fried rice. And I remember standing on a stool, and she was teaching me how to make it. And that's probably 6 years old, 6 or 7 years old. So I just always remember being interested in cooking and loving it. I never thought of it as a career or something that I would do as an entrepreneur. But it just, you know, I think things always just lead you to where you're supposed to be.
Well, it's your passion.
Yes.
And I love cooking now, but when I was a kid, I think until 30, I hated it. And then I think I moved to the suburbs and figured better become a little bit domesticated now that I'm in the suburbs. And Uber Eats was harder to get, so I started cooking.
Right.
But I feel like a lot of people are intimidated by cooking.
Yes.
And obviously when you're a kid and you start at 6, you're not that intimidated. Right. What I love about your show is you make it fun. So it's a lot of fun. So it takes the intimidation factor away for most people because you obviously have a passion in it, but a lot of your audience might not be as passionate as you, and you're teaching them to learn something that they might be intimidated by in a really fun way.
I think a lot of the things, Mimi was talking about the same thing with Boys and Girls Club. Like, you have to make it fun. And I think that's with anything that we're learning. Once you let your guard down when you're having fun, you relax, you allow yourself to make mistakes. You're not as, you're just more open to learn a lot of things when you're enjoying yourself. And a lot of times, I know from personal experience, people have come to me, they see cooking as a chore. Yeah. It's a bore and it's a chore.
That's what I used to think.
So they don't ever see it as something fun. But I think the thing that is so different about cooking is that when you give it to someone and you see their reaction, that they're enjoying it, it gives you satisfaction. Then it changes. The more you do it, it changes your mindset. Now, trust me, I've bombed too a couple times, and that's just part of it. And my kids will say, oh, that was okay. Oh, it's okay.
They probably are spoiled with such good food that if they came to anybody else's house, they'd be like, I'm not eating this stuff.
Well, I make their lunches every day.
Lucky kids.
So sometimes their friends will say, oh, Mom, like, there's orders because my friends want to eat what I'm eating too. And I'm so happy doing that. It's just one of the things that I've seen my mom cooking, and she takes so much pride in feeding the family. So it's one of those things I was taught by watching her. She never really sat me down and taught me how. It's just I really saw. And now that I'm a mother, I see how important it is how our kids really watch us. And that's how we teach them most of all. It's not the things that we sit down with them every day and tell them what to do. It's really who we are that teaches them who we are.
Are any of your kids into cooking?
No.
Are they slowly going to get into it?
They like to cook. Like, and my son started, with the scrambled eggs, just like every kid does. But now I really wanted to start to have my kids at least cook once or twice a month. Like, grab a recipe and learn the skills of cooking, because that is something that when you become a parent or when you're alone, when that time in your life where you're single and living by yourself, you need to figure out how to feed yourself. And then when you become a parent and have children, it's so important.
A husband or a wife will really appreciate your lessons to your kids now.
Yes, totally.
And what you did so early on, we talked off air about this. There's in 2009, Facebook was just getting underway, and I think 2006, 2007, it just started to get some legs. But there was no real influencers on social media, YouTube, on Twitter. Your Facebook is very well followed, but literally every social media outlet of yours is very well followed. How did you have the foresight 10 years ago to really ramp up social media?
I always say entrepreneurship, business always has to do with timing, and you have to have a certain vision of what is happening and have the guts and the risks to say, I'm just gonna go. I don't really know what's happening in this social media. I don't even know what it is really, but I'm gonna go for it. And I just saw an opportunity for myself. I had zero connections in media. I had zero connections in any kind of like influencer space. But because I saw that, I said, I'm just gonna try. And I think in entrepreneurship, a lot of times people are afraid to pull the trigger because they want to be perfect first before they go for it, or they want to have all the answers first. I never go with I just go, which is a good and bad in many things, but it served me more positively than it has negatively. So I'm probably 60 to 70% knowledgeable about many things that I do, and I just go for it. And in the rest of the way, you learn along the way. And I think that's the difference between when we look at other entrepreneurs and say, how are they doing it? It's because they just really went in and did it.
Well, it's like the old idea of the entrepreneur just jumps off a cliff and builds a parachute on the way down. You just have to do it.
Yeah.
John's kind of like that. When we did the show, actually, we said, okay, let's do the show. And we didn't really know how to run a podcast.
Right.
And we're just like, okay, we're going to figure it out as time goes on. And as time goes on, you become better. And what I really like about what you've done is your content's great. So I feel like anything on social media, there's so much of it now. In 2009, there wasn't a lot.
Right.
There's a lot of so-so content, but I feel like great content that's consistent is just always going to eventually get a following. And one of the things I love about your website is your blog. So a lot of blogs have 1 or 2 posts. You have 30, 40, 50 pages of posts. So if you go to mammacuisine.com/blog, your blog is very, very strong.
Right. Thank you so much. Yeah, having you obviously my audiences are moms. Most of them
and
are
me.
moms. And
now.
you. No, actually YouTube.
You have moms and me.
No, actually YouTube is crazy because YouTube is always a different audience because it's very visual. It always teeters more male than female, always by a couple percent more males than female. And I think it's just also because a lot of males are cooking now. You want to cook for your lady, and it's easier to just follow like a quick video than to read.
That's all I do.
No offense to males, but it's just easier to say, okay, good, that's easy, and I'll do it. And I've had men inbox me and say, I want to cook a special dinner for my wife. Help me. So I think it's really cool.
I would do the Mrs. Doubtfire and just have you cook it, and I would come pick it up and take it home for myself. I wouldn't even mess with it if you were there. But
content, you were talking about content,
agreed.
having a lot, yeah.
You have a ton of it, but it's funny you said the males are visual because I have this green egg smoker that I always talk about. And I love my green egg. And I watch so many YouTube clips of people prepping this stuff because once it's in there, you just kind of let it be. But almost every time I cook on it, I'm YouTubing everything because I hate reading the recipes. I read them, but I YouTube everything, and I'm on YouTube. Just in your YouTube channels, get a lot of subscribers. You have a lot of views, and there's a way to make money with that, right?
There is. So YouTube has been great. and not, actually, it's so different now, just like anything else, because there's so many creators now, and they change a lot of their algorithms and the way you make money. But I've really made money through sponsorships. And so in my business, really the brand placement has really helped, and doing a lot of the content and behind the scenes. People don't realize, people think Momma Cuisine is, and it is like me as the personality, and I go on TV and I present things and, demonstrate recipes and things like that. But what people don't see behind the scenes is that I work very closely with the brands who are sponsored with me to actually create their advertising campaigns.
Oh, wonderful.
And these are national big brands who have their own, because they have millions and millions of dollars, they have their own huge advertising agency that they go with. But a lot of times they come to me and we create the campaigns together. So I think people see influencers, Instagram and all these things that they just post, but the way I've done it in my business anyway, and I think you have to bring something really big to the table to have the big brand sponsorships and to really have a real business. And that's really helped my career.
So do you take a lot of their products and then incorporate them into your dishes and
yeah,
use
so
them?
the simpler way is that I incorporate them in the show and do the product placement, right? Here's, brand X for pasta and all of that stuff.
Interesting.
But the most amazing part is I didn't realize that I was doing this over the course, but I've become a creative director and marketing director for a lot of these mid-sized brands and even bigger brands to really help them understand, because I'm also the bridge between them and the consumers, and I speak directly to the consumers, but then I work very closely with the brands. So then we're able to really create national campaigns that really work. So I didn't realize what I was doing until I was doing it. Like,
right.
Wow, this is amazing. So this year I started a marketing agency. So,
Good for you.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have so many followers now that once you have the followers, the national brands say, well, like you said, you have direct to consumer.
Right.
They're watching you. You're very passionate about what you do, and you're a lot of fun, especially when you're on camera. You're direct to them. They trust you because they've been watching you. They go to you for the recipes. So there's such a big value to that national brand or even that mid-sized brand to come to you so you can place their product in a recipe.
Yeah, and there's a lot of creativity there, and a lot of you have to know what you're doing from A through Z, and it only looks, you're supposed to make it look easy. So that's the whole thing.
How do you come up with the idea of new recipes? Because you've been doing this for a long time. So at some point, how many different variations of tacos or chicken or, a chili can you make until you have to be creative enough to come up with new content constantly?
This is why I love being part of the Chicago food community. Before Momma Cuisine, I was in the restaurant industry. And through Momma Cuisine, I've been able to really meet so many chefs, like the best chefs and the top chefs in the city, and visiting and going out and seeing their ideas and really figuring out, how can I make this at home? How can we make this? And a lot of times, to be honest, the most expensive, fancy recipes, farm to table, is very simple stuff. And of course, their techniques are very outrageous sometimes, or very technical, which is why we go out to eat for the experience. But you have the ability to make it homemade. There's so many ways, and a lot of times chefs eat very simply at home. They don't cook the way they cook in restaurants, and it's very cool to be able to sit with them and talk to them and get ideas, and that's how you get inspired. Sometimes you just tweak a little thing or two, and it's a completely different dish.
So do you try a lot of stuff? Are you constantly working and eating all this food? Because if there's leftovers and you're nearby, John and I will. Well, actually, for the next 6 weeks, we're in a fitness competition.
Oh,
so
God.
feed John only, not me, because we're competing against each other. But do you try stuff all the time?
I do, and sometimes I get inspired by just going to the grocery store, walking. I take the longest shopping trips. Like
me too, but probably not for the same reason. I forget what I had on my list. I just walk around aimlessly.
I just walk around the aisles the same way, and sometimes the people at the grocery store, they tell me, "You're still here?" Like, I've seen you walk around like 5 laps. But it's because I want to see also, I try to be smart. I want to see what's new on the shelves, which means those brands are newer and pushing their items to consumers. So then it makes me more creative. Okay, if quinoa is like a thing, why is quinoa everywhere? Then let's create more quinoa recipes. So it's just little things like that I try to be smart and think ahead and see what's out there in the marketplace, because at the end of the day, on the Momma Cuisine side of my business, I'm talking to consumers and I want to be able to give them what they're looking for and what's trending, but at the same time, what's real, what they could really do at home in their real lives.
Where do you shop?
I
Different
shop
places?
in many different places. Actually, I love the ethnic store, like the Mexican store. I think the produce is always better
Top-notch.
and cheaper. Yes. I love Mariano's. I think that's a great place. I think there's so many different places that you could go for different things. And I know that part is a chore, but I like doing it. Because that's what I do. Yeah, it's what I do. But a lot of times I really tell people I love going to the typical like produce market. They usually have the best butchers, fresh meat, the ingredients are fresh, and you get a lot of their ethnic aisles are always better than the mainstream stores. So if you really want to switch up and really learn other things, I would rather go to the local produce store in your neighborhood.
Do you have a favorite? This is probably like saying who's your favorite kid. But do you have a favorite dish? Or
No,
2 or 3? A couple
there's
that are in the top 5?
There's a dish that I love that when I was pregnant with my firstborn, I loved it all the time. It's an eggplant dish with it's super simple. It's a Filipino dish called eggplant torta. It sounds Spanish, but it's a patty essentially, but it's grilled eggplant with egg and sauteed ground pork and onions and ginger. It's so good. It's like an omelet or like a frittata.
Is it on the
No,
but
but I should make a recipe. I eat it all the time. So that's one.
Can the 5 of us in the audience here get the homemade recipe so we can do it at home?
Yes, I'll do it. I'll do it just exclusive to you guys. But there's so many my favorite dishes are always homemade. The ones that my mom makes, not necessarily what's famous on the site. But whatever my mom makes, I always try to make it.
We'll take those. We'll take those recipes too. Any advice for somebody? And you've dabbled in some of the advice already. But any advice you want to give somebody who's getting into business? Doesn't necessarily have to be a cooking show.
Right?
because
No, business.
You're the first, so they'd have a hard time catching up. But anybody who's getting into business, any advice for them?
I think any time in business, you just have to pull the trigger and go. And again, like what I said earlier. It's okay that you don't know everything. It's okay that you don't have the money right now. And I always believe in that, we say the law of attraction. And it is so true. The older that I've become, the more that I realize it is so true. You are who you think you are. And so if you're building, let's say you want to build a restaurant, but you're saying, oh my gosh, where am I supposed to get this money? But when you start to build towards that, you will be surprised the kind of things that are attracted to you because you're working towards those things. Just like you're saying when you started this podcast and the show, you didn't know exactly what it was, but we're here now.
Yeah, I 100% believe in the law of attraction.
Mm-hmm.
You have to believe it. You have to see it. You have to think it, visualize it. And typically, if you put some effort behind that, it's going to happen.
Yeah, and the same thing with hard work.
I agree.
People will have more money than you, smarter than you, have more connections than you, but they cannot outwork you if you choose that.
Right.
So if you really just are ready to put in the work, you will get so far in your dreams and your goals and your passions. You will get so far even with just a little bit of elbow grease. I believe that a lot of people are lazy.
I agree.
I think that most people are lazy. So if you just put a little bit of work, you will go so far. So imagine if you put more than a little work and actually put in a lot. You will be everywhere.
I think hard work beats talent every time. Obviously, if you have talent and you're hardworking, then good for you. You're in that little percent. But if you got to choose hard work or talent, take the hard work. Well, I'm going to go to Mimi so we can do a little round table. By the way, are you a good cook?
I am an okay cook.
Oh,
and
me
and
too,
I just
okay.
have
I
to
say I'm
say,
a good
Johanna, you are very, very inspirational.
Oh, my goodness.
And honestly, and everything that you say is true in terms of hard work. And I've never met somebody that has attained any degree of personal or professional success who didn't really work hard at it. You're not going to do it 9 to 5. That's for darn sure.
No.
Yeah, darn sure. But I I enjoy cooking, but I feel very limited, so I cannot wait to check out your social media, and I'm going to go after it for
Yes,
sure.
yes.
Yeah.
The website's great. I was on it last night, and I was on it earlier today. And what's like I said, she has the videos that go along with the recipes,
love
and they're
it.
so simple that you or
Yes.
I, who are not professionals
Yeah.
like her, could easily jump on and create a really nice looking dish.
Absolutely. And there's so much to be said for what you said is so true about the bonding that goes on as you're cooking with somebody, or it gives you, if you're cooking alone, it gives you time to think and to really sort of take stock in what's important in life. And I greatly admire what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you so much, and you
bet.
as well. Like,
You bet.
you know, my friends, even my boyfriend now will say, "Oh my gosh, you wake up so early to make breakfast. Like, it's really that important to you to wake up this early to make breakfast for the kids." And it's one of those things that when my kids are my age, I want them to think of me the way I've thought of my mom. Like, my mom, it's really my love language. Like, my mom really cared. And it makes me cry because it is so much of who I am and what I'm passionate about in my heart that, like they say, it's food for your body, but it's food for your soul also. And how they say you can taste the love in the food, like all those sayings are so true. You know, that when it's something much deeper than just eating for you know, subsistence. Like, it's really something that will touch you
Without
in your
a
heart.
doubt. Absolutely.
Your passion comes through. I mean, it just in studio, in your videos. I was watching the videos of you in the grocery store at the start of some of your recipes, and you're just so passionate and excited to be in the grocery store. People probably walk by while you're in there. People probably walk by while you're in there and they're like,
yeah,
this girl's
they're
so
like, this
excited
girl
to be
is
here.
crazy. It's just parsley, lady. Relax.
But your passion comes through, and it actually reminds me a lot of maybe what you guys do at the Boys and Girls Clubs, watching the mentors and the kids. And this was, John lines up a lot of times very good duos to be on shows together. I don't know if he does it by chance or if he's just good at doing it, but the idea of being passionate around what you do,
Yes.
I remember being in the clubs, and I'm sure even for the mentors, you know, it's after their work or after their, is it
indeed.
full time for them? Like
No,
a lot of them, it's part time for them.
And many of them have a few jobs, and many
Right.
of them work full time somewhere else, and they come to the club, and I'm sure they're tired. But to your point, Johanna, it fills their soul without a doubt. And it's in talking back, going to food, we find that that's the great leveler in the clubs and the great common denominator. Whenever there's the promise of food or special food, the kids get super excited, and it's just there's. I was thinking about that earlier today, knowing that I was going to see you. To think that there are so many folks in this country that go hungry,
Oh my, yeah.
it's really heartbreaking.
Right.
There's no reason for it, number one, but it's just one of the basic core components that human beings have a right to, right? And to have great food and great experiences around food is just incredible.
And the bonding effect
Right,
of food
right.
is, whether it be at home or I just, you know, even sometimes I read these lead generation for business instructionals, and they say if you can get face to face with somebody, and they say belly to belly, and you share a meal with somebody, the connection during a meal process versus just jumping on a phone call
Right.
or seeing somebody in
Yeah,
passing,
that-
really sharing a meal with somebody can be
Right.
very bonding. I mean, you guys do it at the club
We
for
do.
dinner with the kids.
We
and
do.
You're bringing families together.
But we don't serve the kind of food that it sounds like you make, Johanna. So I would love to invite you to a club, and maybe we could do a special. We could have a cooking session and have the kids join in. They love to
Count me
cook.
in.
Thank
Count me.
you.
I was just thinking the same thing. I need to tell Mimi, let's
Yes,
do
they love to
something cooking. And a lot of times people don't realize, and I used to, in Naperville actually, I used to volunteer a lot with a food pantry there. And it was really showing families how you can make so much with little. A lot of times people feel, you know, sad for themselves that they can't afford X, Y, or Z. But actually, you can cook really good food for very inexpensive. And a lot of the food that even me and my kids love it's so cheap.
Sure.
It's so inexpensive that anybody can and think about our favorite foods. It's rice and beans and things that are so homey that literally you could buy a bag of beans at the store for like 99 cents. And it goes so far. And these are things you'll go to a fancy restaurant and they'll make some fancy bean dish, but you don't realize it's so cheap. So I have I would love to do that.
Wonderful.
I would be so excited
Thank
to do
you.
that.
And you know how fortunate those of us who have the opportunity to be in a business that inspires us, right? And I think folks, no matter how old they are, should keep pursuing that. You know, they might be doing something that just isn't quite right for them, but keep going. And you never know, a hobby can turn into something that is a real passion and a real business success for you as well. Yeah,
I agree. If you can approach anything with a high amount of passion, you're going to influence somebody. It could be whatever you're doing, whether it's non-for-profits or you're in, you're cooking. I tell John this all the time. There's no secret we don't make a killing here over at WheelHouse. It's a passion piece for him and I really. And I say this to him almost every week. I say I work 80 to 100 hours a week, but when I come here, and I'm not passionate about everything else I do. I am. So my office is about to tell me, jerk, do you hate us? But no, I love them too. But this to me is something that I'm passionate about, and with passion comes influence, and you guys both have that at a very, very high level.
Oh, goodness.
thank you. Nice
But
of you to
I
say.
think the collaboration there is great because I think one thing I know, in some of these underserved areas, nutrition, and this is going back to when I was a personal trainer, just having the proper nutrition really affects your brain power and affects your ability to not just decision make, but have a good day,
Right. Without a doubt.
great day. And I think being able to teach the kids, or the kids knowing that you can have great nutrition without having to break the bank, or
Right.
at least the parents to
Right.
learn that is so valuable. And you guys feeding the kids, obviously, at dinner, which is, one of those meals that if you guys did not feed them,
Absolutely.
they could miss out on.
Absolutely, yes. We are firm believers of that, and really we want to engage parents in another way too. And I think around cooking is a very good idea to do that.
that
So
would be
you've given me great hope and inspiration. Thanks,
We're
Johanna.
doing it. We're doing it this year.
Yes, because you're right. When money is tight, you can be very creative and make very very delicious.
Yes.
meals.
That's where the best meals come out of. I mean, think how pasta's made.
Right.
It's easy.
It's easy. It's
Yes.
flour and water and eggs.
Well, actually, think of pasta, pizza,
All
like you
of
said,
that.
rice, beans,
Yes,
all the stuff that we now as adults say if we eat them, we're in a lot of trouble because we will gain weight. Kids can eat them, and especially at the Boys and Girls Clubs when they're running
Absolutely.
around.
They're burning those calories.
They're burning those calories
Yes.
pretty fast. They can eat that stuff, and it helps give them nutrition.
Yeah. And many of our young people, interestingly, gravitate to cooking and go into the culinary world for their careers because I think they do appreciate the value in sharing a meal and to learn how to do things properly and there's great opportunity for them there.
Yes.
There's so many different facets of the food industry and
many.
they do gravitate to that for sure.
You're both really, really busy, and this is something John and I wanted to start asking our guests. Mimi, I'll start with you. What do you do outside of nonprofit for fun?
Well,
Hobbies?
I do work. I do work a
lot?
lot. Yeah, I do, and I'm a voracious reader. In fact, I like to read books on business and how business leaders succeed and how they fail. And I've gotten some great inspiration from some of the folks that have come before me, and and I can't say I do a lot of cooking, but and I spend time with my grandchildren, which I really enjoy as well. Yeah.
Any book recommendations? Because I love
Yes.
reading, and most specifically, business development books.
Yes. I read one recently called Leaders Eat Last, and the title is self-explanatory, right? It's and this would go for in a family, or you just want to make sure that your people are taken care of, and that if push comes to shove, you're going to do without so that they can have what they need. And I thought there was such great value lessons in that book, and I would highly recommend it.
I have it in hard copy, and
Do
I'm going
you?
out of town in 2 weeks
Yes.
to Mexico. And it's every time I go out of town, I listen to Audible a lot because I'm in the car a lot. But every time I go out of town, I get at least one hard copy book to finish while I'm out of town, and that's the book I have.
Good. You will not put it down.
Good,
Until you've
okay.
finished. It's great.
Might be finished before I get there, so I
Yes.
might need another one.
Yes.
Do you use Audible at all?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Audible's great because I enjoy reading a book more than obviously listening to it, but it allows me to get through so much more content
Of
because I'm
course.
just sitting in the car so
Right.
much.
Absolutely.
I really, really love it. What about you in your free time?
Oh gosh. I just started to have free time. Now my youngest turned 9.
Okay.
So now I have no more babies, which actually I'm having a little bit separation anxiety, to be honest, because nobody needs me the way that they used to. It's a different phase in my parenting. But I started to read again. And I just read The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And that was another one. On a flight to Vegas, I finished the whole thing. I couldn't put it down. I just... how long is the flight? 3.5 hours?
3.5, 4 hours?
Yes. I just,
John goes a lot.
just
3.5 or
3.5,
4.
4.
Yes. I just read the whole thing. It was great. And again, at this point, also in my life, in the next phase in my business, it is so important to read. And I think the older you get, the less, like, my kind of party is like, let's stay home, have some wine, relax. And I'm just really enjoying this next phase of what's happening in my career, in my life, my personal life.
Mimi touched on it. Reading about people who are successful in business, so many business owners are such a giver's gain mindset where they want to teach what they've learned and
Right.
teach what has not worked. Being able to just read about somebody else's experience, learning what may have worked for somebody else is, to me, my favorite thing to do now.
Right.
I agree. I get a kick out of just another plug for Harvard Business Review. You can go online and you can read these case studies, and they will present a challenge that you think is seemingly unsolvable. That is, and then they have 2 or 3 experts determine what their suggestion would be and what the solution would be, and it's fascinating. And then they will tell you how the situation was eventually resolved, and I think it's just great fun.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
So Harvard Business
Review cases, yes. You can find them online. They're great. And then you can subscribe, and you'll get one very regularly.
Yeah, wow.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah.
So it's just the whole problem that you try to solve, and then they have
Right.
solutions for it.
Exactly.
It gets your mind thinking.
Yeah.
I love watching Shark Tank. It's a little bit different than that, but I love
I do
watching
too.
I love watching Shark Tank and seeing the product and thinking to myself, well, is that a good product? Is there a problem there? And then some are good, some are bad.
I look it up, like after I'm like, what happened to them now? And so I'll look up their websites and see what happened to them,
Or The Profit with Marcus.
Mark Lemonis,
Yeah,
yes,
Marcus
Lemonis.
Lemonis. Who's a Chicago
great, yeah.
guy, I think.
Lake Forest.
Lake Forest? He takes these problematic businesses and then creates a solution for them.
Right.
Actually,
Incredible.
the gentleman upstairs, Sean Conlon, had one for real estate flips not so long ago. That he took bad real estate flips and kind of went in the middle of it and then solved them. So there's a lot of local Chicago guys with business shows that.
Brilliant
Pop
in
up.
Chicago. There's a lot of brilliant people in Chicago.
So just a real quick, if Marcus, anybody that knows anybody that knows anybody that knows Marcus, I've been dogging him to get him to come in here because he's in Chicago.
Have you been
all
teasing
the
him
time.
on like LinkedIn
Oh,
and stuff?
Man, I'm all over him. Absolutely.
John
Twitter,
is-
LinkedIn.
John is
Yeah.
so good about reaching out to people. I mean, he did it with every mayoral candidate. So he reached out to everybody.
Amazing. Wow.
And he said, we'd love to have you on. And very big thanks again to Gary McCarthy, who immediately answered
Looking
and said,
forward to Paul
"We'd
Vallis."
love to talk to anybody. And we said, oh, okay, great. And then Paul Vallis, shout out to him.
Tony Preckwinkle shot me down right away.
Yeah, he said no.
Nope, can't give you the time.
Well, I live in Northbrook, so I can't vote or not vote for
Yeah,
him.
me
So unless he runs at Northbrook. But no, I mean, you've been very consistent, obviously. So yeah, I guess if Marcus Lemonis is listening.
Well, it's usually 6 degrees.
That's right.
Sometimes 2 or 3 degrees, but yeah.
I think I know the woman who did PR for one of his new clothing.
Well,
you
there
just
you go.
you opened Pandora's box of
you go.
John
There you go.
Let's
of
call
John
her.
bothering you for the next 3 weeks now.
I'm like a dog with a
I
bone.
think I know who the PR person.
If you say you
did
think
it.
you do or do, you do.
John's gonna bug you for the next
John,
3 weeks.
I
now.
have to hand it to you. You're very gentle, but you're very consistent and very
Yes.
persistent.
Yes.
So I think the way you do it is great.
Perfect.
Well, thank you very much. And even really just going to some of the conversation, it really is just you got to keep banging
Yes,
away.
absolutely.
But not in a way that you get away
Offensive.
from me. You know, yeah, exactly. You just gotta be nice and make sure that you stay on people's radars.
Yes. Being nice.
Yeah.
Business rule number 1.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Be nice.
Nice and consistent. I mean,
Yes.
I, on the legal side of things, people say lawyers are jerks. So if anybody in the room has lawyers as family members, I'm a lawyer, so I guess I can say this. But I see it happen 9 out of 10 times on deals where you got somebody who's just being such a jerk.
Yeah.
And it takes usually one phone call where I'll call, because I'm never a jerk on anything. And I'm like, listen, we have to deal with each other for the next 2 years maybe. We don't have to do this for 2 years.
Right.
If you want to just be angry with me for 2 years, we can do
Right.
that. But it's just an awful way
I know.
to run our
Wow.
lives and
Right,
businesses.
right.
And then usually 9 out of 10 times, they'll calm themselves down. 1 out of 10 times, they'll tell me what I can do with my comments. And then I know how it's going to be for 2 more years. But it's, just be a nice person.
Yes.
It really helps.
Yes.
Any trips coming up for you? Or any shows coming up?
Any trips or shows coming up? Let me think. Nothing really yet, but stuff always pops off right when spring
Yeah,
happens.
because spring break with the kids.
Yeah, spring break with the kids. Actually, my son is in school abroad, so he will be back in May
Where is he?
in the Philippines.
Oh,
So my
wonderful.
parents are semi-retired, and I wanted my son, who's born and raised here, to experience the world and experience education somewhere else.
Good for
And
you.
I really think the school system there is great. So I said, bye. I'll
Did
see
he
you.
did he do it willingly or
Oh,
kicking and
no,
screaming?
no. But now he has an Australian girlfriend, and he just called me a couple weeks ago and says, Ma, I think I want to stay. I said, of course you do. As
How
long
old
as
is
you
he?
could have called. He's turning 18 in September.
Okay.
And, he's my only boy. I really wanted him to see the Philippines. I wanted him to see our family, that side of the family there, my Indian side of the family, and just see our culture and know who he was and be independent. And it's changed him so drastically. I cannot believe I even did that. As a mom, you want to hang on to everything and everyone. I can't believe I had the guts to send him away.
Good
But
for
I
you.
knew he was with my parents.
Of
So
course.
it's totally different,
My mom made me stay at home during college until law
Really?
school. Well, no, I went to UIC, so I was actually pre-med. I don't even know if you knew this. I was pre-med bio. My dad was a doctor, so I stayed at home until
Right.
junior year of college, and then I switched to pre-law. But
Right.
they kept me at home. I wish I got sent somewhere. But he's going to end up in Australia now, so
Oh my
congratulations.
goodness. Don't say that. Oh, he sent me pictures, and the other day we were talking and goes, "Oh, Mom, it's going to be my 3-month anniversary." Oh my gosh.
Uh-oh.
He's counting. At least he's thoughtful. So that's good.
cool.
That's right.
That's good.
Well, you obviously put some great values in him, and hopefully he's cooking for his Australian girlfriend there. John's got a love letter. Oh, that's right. I did not ask Mimi for her advice. She gave so much good advice. But do you have any advice for anybody, Mimi, who's getting either into business or into nonprofit?
Yes.
Because, or either or, if you want to give both.
I have to piggyback on what Johanna said because I so firmly believe in it. It's this work hard idea, and to have an extraordinarily strong work ethic as an employer. It's I see folks that are willing to do more and go above and beyond, and those who don't. And I'll tell you, those who do are going to go much further in life, obviously. Also, if somebody's, I often get questions about folks who are in the business world and they want to segue into nonprofit work. Sometimes nonprofit work is what I call a second life work. They spend 20 or 30 years as an attorney or a CPA, and they just feel like they want to make a complete change. And I encourage them wholeheartedly because they can take all of their skills and really do so many wonderful things with it. Nonprofits would really die to have that kind of expertise. But what you have to do is you have to get involved as a volunteer first, I think, so you get their attention. And it's really hard to jump from for-profit to nonprofit without a bridge. So however you can build that bridge, I would strongly recommend people to do that and network. Networking is very important. People reach out to me and ask if they can, if they can take me to coffee, and I introduce them to folks in the nonprofit world, and little by little, if they're really really wanting to make serious about making that change, they will, and they do make a great difference in other people's lives and in their own as well.
And volunteering is a really good step for that.
Without a doubt, absolutely.
And I agree. I mean, you see a lot of people who are getting to the point where they might retire in their career, but most of those people, especially if they were very successful and hardworking to begin with, can't just shut the switch off and say, I'm going to retire. I look at my dad now. He should be retiring, and he just won't.
Right.
He just told me, he goes, if I retire, I'll die.
Yeah. Well, and I even have folks who are, 35 and really young into their careers, and I think they're just a little disenfranchised with what their job is all about. At the end of the day, I think they want to feel like they're contributing to the greater good. Right. And if you don't get that feeling, and if you're really seeking it, boy, you'll get it in a nonprofit world. And even if you loan your expertise, we love that. We would love to have financial advisors come and help us, make some recommendations of what we might do better. So that's another way to volunteer. You don't have to do it from a programmatic side. You can actually do it on the business side, which is easy for them.
That's great.
Yeah.
And thank you for everything you've done, and thank you for everything the Boys and Girls Clubs do.
Yes.
Again, I can't reiterate this enough for everybody watching and who's going to watch later after the show's done. Go out, apply, do the background search, because they can apply on your site, correct?
Yes, they can. And then we'll reach out to them and have a conversation and take it from there.
Perfect. Go out, apply to be a part of it. If you don't want to physically be a part of it, donate, and do what you can to get involved, because the more you impact the club and the more the club can impact the kids, the better the community of Chicago is going to get.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. We have corporations who are what I call their investors. They're investing in our young people, and they say, listen, it is in our best interest to do so, because they will be our employees someday. Yes. And we want to make sure that they have all the tools they need to do that.
The education and the growth of especially kids who are, like you said, 5 to 18, really that age group now, for that next generation and people who might be a generation ahead of them now, they're going to be so impactful for your life going forward. So, and no secret, Chicago really needs that impact badly.
They do.
So if you can get involved, get involved. And the event on March 7th, I'll let you announce that one more time.
March 7th, our Youth of the Year competition and dinner, where we hear firsthand from our young people the impact that the clubs and their mentors and the city of Chicago really has had on their lives.
Exciting.
It's exciting. Like you said, Chicago is an incredible city, and as much as sometimes I hear people poo-poo our city, Chicago does such an incredible job, and it's such a great community that's trying to do better, and you guys at the Boys and Girls Club are absolutely on the forefront of doing that for Chicago.
Well, it's because the entire city literally contributes to that, so thank you.
No, we appreciate everything you guys do. And as I thought we would go over, we did go over. Thank you both for coming on.
Thank you.
So much passion in both of you. And I think it's going to make for a really fun show for everybody who is watching and will be watching soon. John, do we have any announcements for next week?
We do. We have, I don't know what's going on with my mic. I can hear it now too. But we have Michelle Stromberg. Oh, hey, I knew I was going to screw this up. Ohi Haber. She's the executive director of Gateway Green, who produces the Green Tie Ball and does a lot of work along the expressways to try and green up the city of Chicago. And we have Tim Shepherdson, who is the co-founder of the Rocks Bar Group. They have 3 locations, one right here in River North, one in Lakeview, and then one a little bit further north. And Maggie and I really enjoy their place in Lakeview. So we got to know everybody over there, and I thought, you're gonna love this guy. He's hysterical. So it's gonna be another great show.
And if you couldn't hear John because his audio is kind of goofed up, he does have the graphic on the actual video itself. So I'm looking forward to having them on next Wednesday at 3 o'clock.
Absolutely, and hopefully people will be able to hear me.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I don't have much to say other than that.
No, we're kidding. Yes, you do. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday at 3 o'clock Central. Oh, before we go, did you click us off? Our website is going to be live at some point today, aewheelhouse.com. Mm-hmm. It was supposed to be live before the show. Mm-hmm. They didn't make it live, but please check it out. We will share it a bunch of times. I didn't want to forget that. And now I'm done.
In 3, 2,